I expected drama, tears, please. Instead, I simply turned around and walked away without saying a word. A month later, she was standing in the rain, at the door of my house. You think you know someone until the day that person decides to turn your marriage into public entertainment? It was in that moment that I realized two things. First, that nothing would ever be the same, and second, that I had only one choice, and I made it. It all started on a Wednesday night when she came home with an excited energy that immediately put me on alert. She had that look in her eyes, the same one she gets when she's planning something she thinks is very clever. We need to go to a special place this Saturday, she announced, almost jumping with excitement. I organized something very important for us. I was sitting at the kitchen counter, reviewing some work emails on my laptop. What kind of thing? I asked. It's a surprise. Trust me this time. We need to be at the Riverside Event Center at 7 o'clock sharp. The way she said it made my stomach turn. There was something strange about her tone, too rehearsed, as if she had practiced this conversation, but I just nodded. All right. Saturday came, and she spent the entire afternoon getting ready. Hair, makeup, full production. She chose a red dress she only wore on important occasions and checked herself in the mirror several times, always with that satisfied smile. You look beautiful, I said when we got into the car. Thank you. You look presentable too. The ride to the event center was strange. She wouldn't stop fidgeting with her phone, sending messages, putting it away, picking it up again. Every few minutes she would glance at me as if trying to read my reaction. So, what exactly are we walking into here? I asked when we parked. You'll see, just follow me. The Riverside Event Center was one of those generic rental halls with beige carpet and fluorescent lighting. As soon as we passed the entrance, I heard voices and music coming from one of the side rooms. She guided me in that direction with her hand on my arm, but it felt more like she was pushing me than being affectionate. When we entered the main hall, I froze. There were at least 30 people there. Our friends, some of her coworkers, even her sister with her husband. Everyone turned to look at us, and an awkward silence took over the room. Surprise, someone shouted, but it sounded hollow, as if even they didn't quite know what they were celebrating. My wife pulled away from me and went to the center of the room. She grabbed a microphone that she must have left ready there. Suddenly I realized this wasn't a surprise party for me. It was a show, and I was the unwilling audience. Thank you all for coming, her voice began, echoing through the sound system. I know some of you are wondering why I asked you to come, so I'll get straight to the point. The room got even quieter. I felt eyes darting between her and me, and a chill ran through my chest. I've been thinking a lot lately about marriage, relationships, about what we're actually doing here. She paused dramatically, as if giving a motivational speech, and I came to a conclusion. Here it comes, I thought. Marriage is a sham, an outdated institution created to trap people in situations that no longer serve them. So, tonight I want to announce to all of you that I am officially single again. The room exploded. People applauded and cheered as if she had just announced she was running for president. Her sister cheered from the back. A coworker shouted, "You go, girl." I stood there observing that circus, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't pain. It wasn't anger. It was absolute clarity. I finally understood. She had orchestrated all of this to humiliate me in public. She wanted me to beg, to cry, to make a scene, to confirm the narrative she had been building about our marriage. She turned to me with a look of expectation, as if expecting me to kneel right there and ask her to reconsider. The microphone was still in her hand, probably waiting for me to take it to make a desperate speech of love. But no, I looked at her for exactly 3 seconds. Then I stared at the crowd that was still applauding my public humiliation. Then I did the only thing she clearly wasn't prepared for. I turned around and walked away. No words, no drama, no pleading. Just turning my back and walking toward the exit in what felt like both the longest and shortest walk of my life. Behind me, the applause ceased completely. I could still hear her voice, suddenly uncertain, calling my name through the microphone, but I didn't turn around. I didn't slow down. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I got into my car, started the engine, and went home, leaving her to explain to 30 confused people why her grand finale had just gone off script. I got home around 8:30 p.m. and poured myself a bourbon, not because I was devastated, but because I had a lot to think about, and a good whiskey helps me think clearly. She didn't come back that night. She probably stayed at her sister's house, waiting for me to call and apologize for not playing the role she had written for me in this little play. My phone stayed silent on the kitchen counter, and I was perfectly fine with that. On Monday morning, I started making changes. First call to the bank, removing her access to our joint accounts. Not out of revenge, just basic protection. If she wanted to be single, she could handle finances like a single person. Second call to the insurance company, asking to remove her from my health plan. Again, nothing personal, just a logical consequence. Single people have their own insurance. Third call to the locksmith. If she had announced to 30 people that she was single, then she didn't live there anymore. Simple math. By noon, I had new locks on all the doors and a pile of her belongings carefully packed in boxers in the garage. I didn't throw anything away. I didn't damage anything. I just organized it like someone helping a person move out. because essentially, that's what was happening. Around 2 p.m., the phone finally rang. Her name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello? Hi. Her voice was sharp, incredulous. Are you serious? You just walked away. Actually, I walked out of your performance. There's a difference. That wasn't a performance. That was me being honest about how I feel. Honesty would have been a private conversation. What you did was a public humiliation to make me look pathetic. So, congratulations. Mission accomplished. She was silent for a moment. She probably didn't expect me to be so calm. Look, we need to talk. I'm coming home. No, you're not. Excuse me. You announced you were single. Single people don't live in my house. Our house. Check the deed. The house is mine. It always was. You only lived here because we were married. But according to your speech yesterday, we aren't anymore. I heard her breathing getting faster on the other end of the line. You can't just lock me out. This is my house too. It was past tense. You made your choice in front of 30 witnesses. I'm just respecting that choice. You're being ridiculous. I'm pretty sure ridiculous was announcing our divorce at a surprise party without even filing for divorce. I'm just being practical. She hung up on me. I finished my coffee and went back to organizing her things. An hour later, she was pounding on the front door. I saw her through the window. She was still wearing the red dress from the night of her horror show, but now she looked much less put together than at her grand premiere. I opened the door, but stood in the doorway, not inviting her in. What is wrong with you? She snapped. Nothing. I'm fine. Actually, great. Great. Yeah. In the last few months, I kept wondering why you seemed so unhappy, so distant. Yesterday you cleared everything up. You don't want to be married to me. Message received. That's not what I meant. Really? Because marriage is a sham, and I am officially single again seemed pretty clear. Was there some hidden meaning I missed? Her face turned red. I was trying to prove a point. What point exactly? That you like to humiliate me in public? That our marriage means so little to you that you end it by turning it into entertainment for your friends? Help me understand. I wanted you to fight for us. I wanted you to show some emotion. I actually laughed at that. So, your brilliant plan was to announce our divorce in public, wait for me to beg, make a scene, and then you would take me back, full of generosity, in front of everyone. That was your idea of romance? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I just needed to know that you still cared. I did care, past tense again. But you know what the problem with respect is? Once lost, it doesn't come back just because you explained why you threw it away. So that's it. You're going to give up on 8 years of marriage. I'm not giving up on anything. You're the one who quit. I'm just keeping up with the pace. She tried to push past me to enter, but I didn't move from the doorway. Your things are in the garage. I'll leave it unlocked for you to pick them up whenever you want. But you don't live here anymore. You can't be serious. Dead serious. You wanted to be single. Congratulations. Enjoy your freedom. I closed the door and locked it. She knocked for another 10 minutes, screaming from outside about how I was being childish, that we needed to talk like adults, that I was overreacting. I went upstairs and took a long, hot shower. When I got out, the noise had stopped. Her car was no longer in front of the house. That night, she started sending me messages, long texts, full of paragraphs, saying she had made a mistake, that she just wanted me to show I still cared, that we could get past this if I just let her come home and explain. I read every message and deleted them without replying. If she wanted to be single so badly that she announced it in public, then now she would have the chance to feel what it was really like to be single. My phone rang again around 10 p.m. This time I answered on the first ring. What is it? Please, just talk to me. 5 minutes. Let me explain. You had 8 years to explain how you felt. You chose to do it with a microphone in your hand in front of 30 people instead of talking to your husband. That already tells me everything I needed to know about how much my feelings mattered to you. That's not fair. Fair. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been respecting me enough to discuss your problems in private. Fair would have been not turning our marriage into a comedy show for your friends. But you didn't want fairness. You wanted drama. Well, there is your drama. I hung up and turned off my phone. The house was quiet that night, peaceful even. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up, wondering what I had done wrong or how I could fix what was broken between us. I discovered that the only thing that needed fixing was my willingness to tolerate disrespect, and that was finally working again. In the morning came the consequences she hadn't foreseen. I was drinking my coffee, reading the news, when my phone started vibrating with messages from her work friends who were at the party. Dude, what she did to you on Saturday was heavy. Man. I felt uncomfortable watching all that. Just wanted you to know that not everyone thought the way she acted was cool. Apparently, after the initial shock wore off and people had time to reflect on what they had witnessed, the mood shifted. What on Saturday night looked like empowered female independence, in the harsh light of day revealed itself more like public cruelty. At lunchtime, she showed up at my house again. This time she brought her sister for moral support, a clear sign she was getting desperate. I answered the door, but invited neither of them in. We need to talk, she said, trying to sound authoritative. No, we don't. Her sister chimed in. Come on, be reasonable. She made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. I looked at her sister with genuine curiosity. Would you humiliate your husband in front of 30 people just to prove a point? That's not what she did, was it? I was there. I heard the speech, saw the applause. I'm pretty sure I know exactly what happened. My wife took a step forward. Look, I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to therapy, work on our problems. Our problems? Which ones exactly? You know, you've been distant. You don't communicate. You treat me like you don't care. I smiled slightly. So, your solution was to treat me like you didn't care in public. So blatantly that 30 people applauded when you announced you were done with me. That was your idea of communication. I was trying to get your attention. Mission accomplished. You have my full attention now. I am paying very close attention to the fact that you thought our marriage was worth less than the applause of people who barely know us. Her sister tried again. Look, she's sorry. She realized she crossed the line. Is she really? Because so far, I haven't heard an apology. Just justifications, lame excuses, and no real apology for what she did. Her face turned red. Okay, I'm sorry. So, there. Are you happy? I'm sorry. For what? Exactly. For the party thing. Ah, the party thing. Is that what we're calling it now? Not for humiliating me in public. Not for announcing our divorce without talking to me. Not for turning our marriage into entertainment. Just the party thing. She looked frustrated, as if I were being difficult on purpose. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to feel the consequences of your choices. This is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Me. Because as far as I know, adults discuss their problems in private. Adults respect their partners enough not to expose them in public. Adults don't announce life-changing decisions to an audience without consulting the other person involved. So, between the two of us, who is acting like a child? Her sister put her arm around her. He's right, you know? My wife spun around to face her sister, shocked. What? I told you it was a terrible idea when you told me on Friday. I warned you it would backfire, but you said you knew what you were doing. You knew about this. I asked her sister. She called me on Friday all excited about the plan. I said she was being cruel, but she answered that you would understand as soon as you realized how serious she was about fixing the marriage. I looked back at my wife. So you planned this for days. It wasn't a momentary outburst of emotion. You actually sat down, thought about it, invited people, rented a hall, and decided that humiliating me in public was the best strategy to save our relationship. She didn't answer, and her silence was answer enough. That makes everything even worse. Do you realize that? I said. If it had been a moment of anger, at least I could understand. But it wasn't. It was calculated. It was you deciding that embarrassing me was acceptable collateral damage for the point you wanted to prove. I didn't think you would just leave. And what did you think I would do? Fall to my knees and beg you not to leave me in front of everyone? Give you exactly the power show you were looking for. I thought you would fight for us. Fight for us. You announced to a room full of people that marriage is a sham, and that you were single? What exactly was I supposed to fight for in that moment? You were certain about insulting our entire relationship in public while I stood there taking it. Her sister was shaking her head. I told you this would happen. I warned you, he isn't the type to put up with drama. Shut up, my wife snapped at her sister, then turned back to me. Okay, you want an apology? I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry if I embarrassed you. I'm sorry if I didn't handle the situation better. There, now can we please move on? I stared at her for a long moment. You still don't get it. Get what? That it's not about hurt feelings? It's about respect. You showed me exactly how much you respect me, how much you respect our marriage and our relationship. And there is no apology capable of recovering the respect you threw away. So that's it. You're going to give up just like that. All of a sudden. I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. The reality that you valued our marriage so little that you decided to turn it into a public spectacle. The reality that you care more about theatrical gestures than honest conversations. The reality that you don't respect me enough to treat our problems as something private between the two of us. I took a step back, moving away from the door. Your things are still in the garage. Take them whenever you want. But this conversation is over. Wait. She tried to move forward, but I was already closing the door. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, I said through the glass. You made your choice on Saturday night. Now live with it. I walked away and heard the two of them talking outside for a few minutes until the car door slammed and they drove off. That afternoon, 3 more mutual friends texted me. Apparently the story of what really happened at that party was already circulating, and people were starting to pick sides. The tide was turning, and not in her favor. At night, she tried to call me 6 more times. I didn't answer any of them. The woman who announced she was single was discovering that being single meant being alone. And I was discovering that some bridges, when burned in public, cannot be rebuilt with private apologies. On Wednesday, the social consequences became even clearer. I found out through mutual friends that those who applauded her announcement were beginning to rethink what they had actually witnessed. A colleague of hers texted me in the afternoon. Dude, what happened Saturday didn't sit well with most of us. It was brutal to watch. Another friend called me directly. Bro, I can't stop thinking about that night. The more I replay the scene in my head, the more absurd it seems. She really blindsided you with that. Apparently, when the initial shock and awkwardness wore off, people started talking, and the more they talked, the more they realized they had been accomplices to something cruel. No one likes to be used as an extra in someone else's drama, and that's exactly what she did to them. Meanwhile, I started receiving invitations I hadn't seen in months. Golf on Friday, drinks after work, dinner plans on the weekend. It was as if people who previously walked on eggshells around our marital problems finally felt free to talk to me directly instead of dealing with us as a couple package. On Thursday morning, I ran into a college friend of hers at the coffee shop near my work. She seemed uncomfortable seeing me, as if she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Hi," she said softly. "Good morning." She hesitated, then approached. "Look, I need to say something. What she did on Saturday was wrong. I've known her for 15 years and I've never seen her be so cruel to anyone. I appreciate you saying that. She keeps sending messages in the group chat asking us to convince you to talk to her. But honestly, most of us are disgusted by the whole thing. No one wants to get involved." That explained why her calls were decreasing. Her support network was crumbling because not even her closest friends could defend what she had done. On Friday night, I went out for drinks with some coworkers. We ended up at a sports bar downtown, watching the game and chatting lightly. Normally, for the first time in months, I wasn't worried about getting home at a certain time or dealing with some invented crisis. Around 10:30 p.m., guess who walked in, accompanied by her sister and 2 other friends. She saw me immediately and came straight to our table. "Can we talk?" she asked, completely ignoring my coworkers. "We're watching the game." I looked at the guys who were staring at that awkward scene. "Do you guys know her? This is the woman who announced she was single at a surprise party last weekend." Her face turned red. "Don't do this here." "Do what?" "Tell the truth. I thought you loved public announcements." One of my colleagues let out a low whistle. "So that was you." "Man, that story is circulating through the entire office." That was heavy. She looked around the table, seeing 4 men staring at her like she was toxic waste. "This is ridiculous." "Ridiculous is you following me to a bar to continue a conversation you yourself ended on Saturday. You said you were single? Single people don't stalk ex-husbands in sports bars." Her sister approached and grabbed her arm. "Let's go. Let it go." But she pulled away. "I'm not giving up on us. There is no us. You made that very clear to 30 people on Saturday. Were you lying then? Or are you lying now?" "I wasn't lying. I just wanted to make you listen to me." "Mission accomplished. You succeeded." The message was received, crystal clear. She stood there for a few more seconds, realizing that everyone at the table was staring at her with a mix of pity and disapproval. Her grand gesture had gone so wrong that even strangers were judging her for it. "Okay," she said finally. "So this is over." "It's been over, yes." She stormed out with her sister trailing behind. My colleagues were silent for a moment, until one of them started laughing. "Damn, man. She really thought humiliating you in public was going to make you chase after her. That's a level of crazy I've never seen." The weekend was quiet. I completely cleaned out the garage, organized things I had been putting off, and finally enjoyed my own house without walking on eggshells. No drama, no invented crises, no emotional manipulation disguised as communication. On Sunday afternoon, her best friend from high school appeared at my door. This surprised me because this woman had always been polite but distant with me. Now she seemed genuinely shaken. "I need to apologize to you," she said before I even greeted her. "For what?" "For not speaking up on Saturday. For letting her do that to you. For applauding when in fact I should have walked out of there." I leaned against the doorframe. "Why didn't you leave?" "Because I was in shock. Because it happened too fast. Because I didn't want to cause a scene." She shook her head. "But mostly because I've been hearing her complain about your marriage for months and thought maybe she had a point. Now I realize she painted a picture that wasn't real. The things she said about you, the way she described the relationship, don't match what I saw on Saturday." "And what did you see on Saturday?" "A woman humiliating a man who clearly loved her. A woman so desperate for attention and control that she preferred to destroy her own marriage in public just to prove a point. She seemed ... proud, and I helped with that. She made her choice. You were just there when it happened. She's falling apart. None of us want to be near her. She keeps calling, texting, showing up at houses, trying to convince us to help fix this. But there is nothing to fix. She broke something that can't be repaired." "Not really. She thought you would crawl back. She was sure you would beg when you simply walked away. I think that's when she realized she miscalculated everything." After she left, I sat on the porch with a beer and thought about how quickly everything had changed. A week ago, I was married to a woman who disrespected me to the point of turning our problems into a spectacle. Now I was free of that toxicity, and even her closest friends admitted she had been wrong. Sometimes, the best response to someone trying to humiliate you is simply to refuse the humiliation. Leave the person there with the microphone, and the audience speaking to the void while you walk away with your dignity intact. The people who are really worth it will respect you for it. The ones who don't respect it were never worth it. In the second week after the announcement, desperation set in. She started showing up everywhere I went, as if she were tracking my steps. On Monday morning, she was waiting for me next to my car in the work parking lot. I walked right past her and got in without paying attention. She banged on the glass, talking through it about how we needed to resolve things. I started the engine and drove off while she was still talking. On Tuesday, she showed up at the supermarket while I was shopping, followed me down the cereal aisle, talking to my back about couples therapy and second chances. I finished my shopping and left her there, standing among the boxers. On Wednesday, she came with a new strategy. She started using other people as messengers. Her mother called, trying to make me feel guilty for destroying the family. Her brother texted asking us to have coffee and talk like adults. Even my own mother received a call from her, crying, saying she had made a mistake and just wanted to come home. I gave everyone the same answer. She made her choice in public, and I was just respecting that choice. On Thursday night, I was at the gym when she appeared. She had never done a single workout during our entire marriage, but there she was in brand new sportswear, pretending to use the elliptical machine while staring at me. I finished my workout and went to the locker room. She followed me to the men's locker room door and waited for me to come out. The gym staff had to ask her to leave. On Friday, she reached the peak of her campaign. She sent flowers to my office with a card saying sorry in childish handwriting. Then she sent a singing telegram right in the middle of my lunch meeting. A woman in a costume sang a song about forgiveness, while my client looked at me in complete silence and confusion. I just said thank you, gave a $20 tip, and continued the meeting as if nothing had happened. Later, my client commented that he was impressed with how I handled the situation. He even said it demonstrated character under pressure. Over the weekend, she resorted to pure manipulation. She started posting on social media about depression and loneliness, clearly trying to fish for sympathy and hoping someone would pressure me to take her back. When that didn't work, she posted old photos of us with captions about the good times and fighting for love. I didn't reply to anything, nor did I see the posts. I blocked all her accounts the day after the singlehood announcement. I only found out because friends told me. On Sunday night, she tried the nuclear option. She called pretending to be in an emergency, crying hysterically, saying she was in trouble and needed help. When I didn't rush over immediately, her sister called with the same story. I took the car and went to her sister's house, but not because I was worried. I went because I wanted to see how low she was capable of sinking. She opened the door herself. She was perfectly fine. No emergency, just eyes red from crying and an expression loaded with desperation. "You came," she said, as if that proved something. "Your sister said you were in trouble, but I see you're not. I'm leaving, wait please. I just wanted to talk to you face to face, without interruptions. So you invented an emergency. That's your idea of mature communication?" I was desperate. "You don't answer my calls? You don't see me? You don't acknowledge that I exist? You announced you were single. Single people don't have the right to demand attention from ex-husbands. I made a mistake." "No, you made a choice. Planned, organized, executed. The only mistake was thinking I would participate in your drama." She grabbed my arm when I turned to leave. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't focus on anything. I miss you so much. This is killing me." I looked at her hand clutching my arm, then at her face. "This is called a consequence. You'll get used to it. How can you be so cold? It was 8 years of marriage, and you threw those 8 years away in exchange for applause from people who barely know us. You chose the audience over the husband. Now go live with that choice." I shook off her hand and went back to the car. She followed me, still talking, still begging, still trying to negotiate a way out of the hole she dug for herself. When I drove off, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her standing alone in her sister's driveway, finally understanding that certain bridges cannot be rebuilt after being burned in front of 30 witnesses. The woman who wanted drama so badly was getting exactly what she asked for. The problem is that now she was the only one still watching her own show. 1 month after her big announcement, I lived the best night in years. I prepared a perfect steak on the grill, opened a bottle of wine I had been saving, and watched the playoffs in absolute peace. Around 9:30 p.m., it started to rain. Not ordinary rain, but one of those heavy storms that make you thankful for being indoors and protected. That was when I heard a soft knock on the front door, almost drowned out by the sound of the rain. I looked through the window, and there she was, soaked, no umbrella, no coat, standing on the porch in jeans and a t-shirt clinging to her body, hair plastered down, mascara running down her cheeks, and the expression of someone who had been there for a long time. She knocked again, this time more desperate. I stood at the window, watching her through the glass. She lifted her face and saw me there. She pressed the palm of her hand against the glass, as if trying to pass through it. "Please," I could hear her say, even through the barrier of the window. "Please, let me in. We need to talk." I stood there for a long moment, absorbing the whole scene. It was the same woman who a month earlier had stood before 30 people, microphone in hand, to announce that marriage was a sham and that she was single again. The same woman who planned that humiliation for days, invited an audience to watch, and expected me to beg for her forgiveness. Now she was the one begging in the rain. The irony was perfect, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sense of revenge, no desire to gloat, just emptiness where feelings for her used to exist. She knocked harder, now in desperation. I know you're there. I see you. Please, just 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That was all she wanted now. 5 minutes to try to erase a month of consequences for 8 seconds of public humiliation. I stepped away from the window and went back to the sofa. I picked up my glass of wine and took a sip. The steak was starting to get cold, but it remained perfect. The knocking on the door continued for another 10 minutes. Sometimes soft and pleading, sometimes desperate and demanding. I could hear her voice muffled by the rain and the walls, but I didn't strain to understand the words. Until, finally, the noise ceased. I looked through the window again and saw her sitting on the front steps, curled up, head in her hands, while the rain still fell without mercy upon her. Part of me wondered how long she would stay there. Another part wondered if that wasn't just another performance, a final act to try to guilt me and make me open the door. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of the drama, the manipulation, of being treated like an extra in the story she invented about empowerment and independence. That night at the event center, she made her choice. She chose the audience over the husband, public humiliation over private conversation, applause over respect. And every consequence since then was just the natural result of that choice. I finished my wine and went up to the bedroom. From the upstairs window, I could still see her sitting in the rain like a tragic heroine, waiting for her redemption scene. But that wasn't a movie, it was real life. And in real life, actions have consequences. Certain mistakes cannot be fixed with tears under the storm. I closed the curtains and went to sleep. The next morning, she was no longer there. Stuck to the door by the rain was a soaked piece of paper, probably a letter she wrote while waiting. I threw it in the trash without reading it. 3 months later, I heard through mutual friends that she had moved to another state. Started over, far from the social circle that witnessed her disaster. I never saw her again. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled it, if I think I should have given another chance, shown mercy, been the bigger person. But respect isn't something you lose and then recover with an apology. Trust isn't something you break in public and try to patch up in private. Dignity isn't something you sacrifice in exchange for applause and then try to rescue with tears. She wanted to be single so badly, she made it a public celebration. I just gave her exactly what she asked for. Comment from Reddit dude. Interesting. She wanted applause, an audience, and a speech of liberation. In the end, she really got it. Applause from strangers, silence from the ex-husband, and the audience dispersing. Who knew the ticket to her own show would be so expensive? Well, drama has a limit. Respect doesn't come back, and dignity can't be bought with tears in the rain.